bought this beaded bonsai tree kit in Japan when I was there earlier this year, and I did an unboxing of it, but it's been sitting there for a little while waiting for me to make it. So here I am taking a look at the instructions again, and I'm pretty excited to make it, though I don't think I'm that good at this sort of beadwork, but we'll see how it turns out. So I'm checking out the instructions, a sort of overview page, and then a more detailed page. And of course, it's in Japanese, but we knew that. But the magic of Google Translate will help us through this, no problem. Plus, the diagrams are pretty easy to figure out as well. It's really easy to use these apps these days. You can either use Google Lens or the Google Translate app, hover over and it translates it in real time. It's a bit hard to see taking a video of your phone, but you get the idea. It's pretty handy. So I'm just checking over to see if there's anything critical that I need to find out, all of the small print at the bottom, anything that I might need to know. As I'm not really an expert with wire, I thought it was useful to have these tips here about sort of overworking the wire, because it might break if you do that, so I definitely kept that in mind. So the very first step here is to cut the pieces of wire to a certain length, and I had to cut 50 of them, so that was, a little bit crazy. So I used that piece of tape on my desk and measured out the required length, so I didn't have to use a tape measure each time. And then I just measured it against the mark and used my cutters. Even though the wire is quite fine, I didn't want to use my scissors on this, though you probably could have, but if you've got cutters handy, it's a bit easier to use that. So wire is very springy. But yeah, I set to work on making all of those cuts. Okay, so I've cut about half of the length of the wire, but it's so springy. I thought I'll just do half at a time. I don't need to cut 50 pieces of wire. Let's take it bit by bit. And I've weighted them down under this pair of scissors over here because they're jumping around everywhere. Okay, let's open up one packet. I think I just managed to tear that package somehow. Yes, I did. Don't know how I did that, but well, they may as well come out of that pack because they're not going back into it. We have to pick up 19 beads, I think that is. Not so 19 beads there, but we will use 19 beads. What do we say the first one is going to be the trickiest? There's nothing too tricky about this bit here, but you just have to concentrate and count and control the springiness of the wire. So we fold it in half, twist it at the bottom, and then you twist it. Oh, why does it look so easy in the instructions? Is that right, do you think? Actually, I think it's good enough. These are sort of loosely twisted in the picture. Diagrams can be a bit perfect when in reality it's a bit more natural. I think we'll call the first one done. We need 7mm of twist below, which is probably about right. I think it will get easier. I mean, once you've done 50, surely it'll be easier. Okay, so this is the bit where it gets quite repetitive. You definitely get faster picking up those beads and counting them. And the twisting bit, you definitely do refine it. I think the first time you do it, you sort of twist and nothing's happening. But I think the key is to twist the wire below the beads and then twist the beads. And then suddenly you've got 25 done of that first colour. And that's how many beads I had left over. So, I mean, you could have used some extra little flowerlets, but I just stuck to the pattern for now. Next, it was the second colour. I have made 25 of these little flower stalks now. This is how many beads I had left over, so some, but not too many. There we are, that's half of them done. I have already cut the next 25 pieces of wire, because that just takes longer than you think. Actually, it's quite springy, and so we're going to open the next, these packets are terrible, actually. There's no way you can put your beads back in these afterwards. So I'll just empty them all out. And we are going to do exactly the same. So we'll speed this up because it does take a little while. This process is exactly the same as the first set, using the slightly different colour of beads. But apart from that, it's exactly the same. You just need 25 of each, and it takes a little while, so get into the groove. So if we compare the colours, one is more solid and lighter, and this one is a little bit more see-through and darker. So very similar shades, but they'll add a nice contrast. So all I have to do now is make 25 of the second colour, and I think by the time you get to the end you become pretty expert at it and zip along pretty fast. But it was fun to make them, see them all pile up, see the pile of beads gradually disappear from my bead mat. Do you like things like this, where it's very repetitive and it allows you to practice over and over what you're doing, so you got more chances of getting it right? In the end, it's done. Next step, I am back looking at the instruction because we are putting pairs of these together, and I needed the tape measure to make sure they were all the same length, and then I'm putting some pairs into sets of 4. So we are up to here. I am joining 2 sets like this to make these, and we need to make 5 of them. So I've done 2. I'll make the next couple, and we need a 5mm. Five of those, and then make 2 of these and leave this one left over. So essentially what I'm doing at this time is following the instructions on how many to group into which sort of bunch. As the wire gets thicker, it's pretty hard to turn actually. So when you get to this stage, you've got one sort of bigger bunch and two smaller bunches of these flower sets. And we need to see how they go together, and this is where the sort of artistic license comes into it a bit. They're telling you to sort of put two together on one side and one offset to the other, but I mean, you can sort of do whatever you want. A thing to note though is that all of the flowers are poking up at this stage, and that's not how they'll look in the end. The wisteria hangs down. Anyway, I carried on trying to keep the measurements approximate as best I could. All those little arrows are telling you how much of the wire you need to twist, and it's pretty hard going at this stage on your hands. Time for a quick check on the next step in the instructions to see that I'm on the right track and what the next steps I've got to do left are. So I take a look at the box again, because this is the point where I'm bending all the little flowerlets down so they look like the hanging wisteria. And I think this is the point that sort of really makes or breaks the project. You can twist a bunch of beads in wire all you want, but making it look good in the end is, I think, the harder part. So I took a little time doing this just to make sure that it looks the best that I'm capable of making it. You can always make changes to this later anyway once it's in the pot, so I decided to stop, get the pot out and see how I was going to make it sit in this tiny little pot. So the bunch of wires is quite thick, but it needs sort of bending over and twisted around to sort of create like a foot shape. And yeah, it was pretty hard to sort of keep it in there, but keep sort of trying it up against the pot to see if it would fit. And then I got this, I don't know what it is actually. It's like, just soft squishy stuff. And I various plays around with like, what am I doing? Shall I put this in? Well, like, oh yes, I think I need to bend it a bit more. And I got the pliers out just to shorten it a bit, because it was still looking like it was not quite fitting in the pot. So I think you can actually stuff around with that stage for ages, but at some point you've just got to stop and put it in the pot and sit it down. Yeah, definitely too much stuffing around, but it's all part of the creative process, isn't it? So let's get some of this in the pot, and that will sort of keep it stable in there, and then you can do a little bit of adjustment and add a little bit more and work up from there. So I'm just using my fingers to push it down into the corners, adding a little bit more at a time, just filling up the pot really. And you fill it up until it's sort of quite near the top, because the next step after this is just adding the stones, and you press those into this sort of like putty stuff. So there we are. I think the one thing is that the flowers do get a bit dislodged when you're playing around with it, but we can tweak those later. So we're up to the last steps now, where we're putting these little gravel stones in, like a little soil topping. A little bit fiddly. I don't know exactly how much the stones are going to stay in place, but once I finish this, I don't plan to be moving it around a lot. It's just going to sit on a shelf. So there we are, it's finished, and I thought I'd give it a little photo shoot so I could get the overall look from the side and different sides to see if I thought it looked good or not so good. And as you turn it, you can see the different, very subtle changes in the purple colours in it. So I think it's sort of a little bit flat. Maybe it needs to sort of be drapey a bit more, but I can play about with that later. So there we are, the little bonsai is complete. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel.